I'm Victor Hill, and today we are not here to learn tricks. We are here to understand the core of game theory for life. Most men think life is chaotic, unfair, random. It isn't. It only looks that way when you don't understand the game being played. Every day you make moves, some loudly, some quietly, some without even realizing they were moves at all. The life responds, not emotionally, not morally, but logically. That is the part most people miss. Game theory is not about games. It is about decisions made under pressure. It is about people reacting to incentives. It is about consequences arriving on a schedule, whether you acknowledge them or not. You don't lose in life because you are weak. You lose because you didn't see the full board. You reacted too early. You revealed too much. You mistook urgency for impotence. And someone else, someone quieter, someone more patient played the long game. This conversation is not comfortable. It is not motivational. It is not here to make you feel better. It is here to make you aware. Because once you see the game, you cannot unsee it. You cannot. And from that moment onward, every move you make starts to matter more than it ever did before. Let's begin. To understand how this game works, we first need to remove the wrong ideas about what it actually is. Game theory is often misunderstood. People hear the word game and assume play, fun, assume something detached from real life. That misunderstanding is expensive because game theory is not about winning games. It is about understanding interaction. Every decision you make exists inside a system that reacts. Not sometimes, always. You are never making a move alone, even when no one is watching. Because environment remembers, people remember, patterns remember. Game theory begins with a simple truth. Your choice is never isolated. What you do today changes how tomorrow treats you. In life, there is always an unseen opponent. Sometimes it is another person, sometimes it's a group, sometimes it's time itself, and sometimes it's the version of you that people have already learned to expect. That is where most men lose leverage. They become predictable, not because they are honest, but because they are emotional. They react when provoked. They speak when silence would have worked harder. They rush decisions because waiting feels uncomfortable to them. But discomfort is not danger, my friend. It only feels like it. Game theory does not reward speed. It rewards position. It rewards the man who understands that every action sends a signal. Even anger is a signal. Even generosity is a signal. Even silence is a signal. Life listens carefully to these signals and then it adjusts. Here is the first principle most people never learn. Life doesn't punish mistakes, it punishes patterns. One bad decision really destroys a man. A repeated one eventually does. Not because life is cruel, but because systems seek consistency. If you always react, life will always test you. If you always explain, life will always demand justification. If you always rush, life will always make you pay for speed. This is why intelligence alone is not enough in this game. You can be smart and still lose repeatedly because intelligence without restraint is just fast failure. Game theory is restraint. It is awareness before action. It is seeing beyond the current moment. It asks a quiet question before every move. What does this decision teach the world about how I can be treated? Most men never ask that question. They only ask how they feel. And feelings, while real, are terrible strategists. This is where the game begins. Once you understand the nature of the game, the next question becomes unavoidable. Who are you really playing it against? Once you understand that every decision exists inside a system, the next realization becomes unavoidable. There is always an opponent. Not always a person standing in front of you, not always someone who wants to harm you. Often the opponent is invisible. It is the situation responding to your behavior. It is people adjusting to what you allow. It is time exposing what you repeat. Life is not personal, but it is responsive, my dear friend. Most men misunderstand opposition. They look for enemies when they should be studying patterns. A man who argues often teaches others how to control him. A man who explains himself repeatedly teaches others that his position is negotiable. A man who reacts emotionally teaches the world where to press. These are not moral judgments, they are strategic realities. Game theory does not ask whether something is fair, it asks whether something is effective. Every interaction you have is a negotiation of power, respect, and expectation. Not because people are evil, but because systems optimize. They learn what works. People learn what you tolerate. Workplaces learn how much you will give. Relationships learn what behavior you will excuse. And then they respond accordingly. This is where awareness becomes dangerous. Because once you see the opponent clearly, you realize something uncomfortable. You have been teaching life how to treat you through consistency, through repetition, through what you allow to pass unchallenged. The opponent is not trying to defeat you, it is trying to understand you better. And once it understands you, it can predict you. Prediction is power. Here is the rule most men never hear. The moment you become predictable, you stop being respected. Not because people dislike predictability, but because predictability removes the uncertainty. And uncertainty is leverage. The most powerful position in any game is not dominance, it is ambiguity. When people cannot easily read you, they move carefully. When systems cannot anticipate your reactions, they adjust in your favor. This does not mean manipulation, it means discipline. It means choosing responses instead of reflexes. It means understanding that not every challenge deserves an answer. Sometimes the strongest move is allowing the other side to reveal itself first. Because in every system, the one who moves first often reveals the most. And in life, information is never free, my friend. This is the second layer of the game, and most men are still playing blind. And when you mistreat the opponent, loss is not immediate, it is repetitive. Loss is not random. It feels that way only when you don't understand how consistently it is earned. Most men believe they lose because they lack opportunity or support or luck. Rarely do they consider that they are losing because they keep making the same kind of moves again and again. Loss in game theory is not failure, it is feedback. And feedback repeats until it is understood. Men don't lose once, they lose in patterns. They speak when they should wait. They commit when they should observe. They react when they should remain still. Not because they are foolish, but because they are impatient. Impatience is expensive. It pushes decisions forward before enough information is available. It forces closer where ambiguity would have created advantage. In life, many losses are not defeats, they are early moves. A man reveals his hand too soon, his intention, his emotions, his limits, and once revealed, the system adjusts. People push further, situations demand more, life raises the price. This is why emotional decisions will rushed in the moment and costly later. Because emotions optimize for relief, not outcome. Here is the trust most men resist. Loss is rarely caused by weakness, it is caused by exposure. You showed too much, too early, too clearly. You taught the system how to press you. And here's the another source of loss the need to prove intelligence, to prove strength, to prove worth. Every attempt to prove something hands power to the observer because the one who seeks validation has already conceded leverage. In game theory, the player who needs the win most is usually the one who loses, not immediately, but eventually. Loss also comes from confusing motion with progress, being busy, being loud, being constantly active. But activity is not a strategy. A man can move constantly and still go nowhere because movement without direction only makes you easier to track. Life does not reward efforts alone, it rewards alignment. And when effort is misaligned, loss becomes inevitable, my dear friend. Here is the line that ends this act completely. Every loss teaches the same lesson. Every loss teaches the same lesson, but only the patient learn it before it becomes permanent. This is where most men stop listening. Because understanding loss means taking responsibility, and responsibility is heavier than blame. But this is also where the game begins to turn. After enough loss, most men don't need another move, they need stillness. After loss, most men rush to act. They want to correct, to respond, to reclaim control. But game theory teaches something uncomfortable. Not every moment requires a move. Sometimes the most powerful decision is to wait. Silence is not absence, it is pressure without exposure. When you stay silent, others continue to act. They speak, they reveal, they overextend. And every action they take gives you information without costing you position. Patience is not passive, it is selective engagement. In life, the man who moves last often moves best, because by then, the board is clearer. Most mistakes happen when men confuse urgency with importance. They respond to discomfort as if it were danger. But discomfort is simply the mind asking for relief. And relief is rarely strategic. Game theory favors the man who can tolerate the longest pause because the time exposes intention. People reveal who they are when they are not being interrupted. Systems show their limits when they are allowed to run. Here is the principle few men practice. The longer you can wait without reacting, the more game bends in your favor. Silence also recalibrates value. A man who is always available teaches others that his time is cheap. A man who always responds immediately teaches others that he can be rushed. But a man who chooses when to engage forces the world to adjust its pace. This is not arrogance, it is self respect expressed through restraint. Patience creates gravity. When you do not chase, others slow down. When you do not explain, others listen more carefully. When you do not react, others reconsider their approach. This is why stillness is powerful, because in a world addicted to noise, quiet stands out. Game theory does not reward constant action, it rewards timed action. And timing belongs to the man who can wait without needing reassurance. This is the invisible advantage, and most men never use it. And this is where the game quietly shifts, because patience is the doorway through which real success enters. Success is often misunderstood. People look at outcomes and assume talent, luck, privilege. Game theory looks elsewhere. It studies consistency. Men who succeed repeatedly are not making extraordinary moves. They are making fewer mistakes. They understand that in long games, avoiding loss matters more than chasing wins. Success in life is rarely a sudden breakthrough. It is quiet positioning over time. Successful men choose predictability in values and unpredictability in response. They are reliable in principle and flexible in execution. This combination is rare, my friend, because most men reverse it. They are unpredictable in values and rigid in behavior, and life punishes that. Game theory rewards alignment. A man who knows what he will not do moves with clarity. A man who knows his limits stops earlier than others. And stopping early often looks like weakness to those who don't understand the board. But restraint compounds. Here is a principle worth remembering. The man who wins often is the one who refuses to play every round. Successful men also understand leverage. They do not seek control everywhere. They choose the arenas where their moves matter. They do not argue to be right. They position themselves so being right becomes irrelevant. They let systems work for them. Repetition, trust, time. These are not motivational ideas. They are strategic assets. Repetition reduces resistance. Trust lowers transaction cost. Time multiplies effort. Men who succeed long term invest in this quietly. They don't announce a strategy. They don't rush results. They allow patterns to form. And once a pattern forms, life responds automatically. This is the real advantage. Not dominance, not force, but structure. Structure makes success repeatable. And anything repeatable is no longer luck. This is where the game starts favoring you. But success has a cost. And understanding that cost is what separates luck from permanence. Every decision has a cost, not just in money, in time, in energy, in reputation. Game theory does not ask whether you can afford something now. It asks whether you can afford what it will demand later. Most men only count the visible price. They ignore the hidden ones. They measure gain and forget exposure. They measure speed and forget consequence. Value in life is not what you receive, it is what you give up to receive it. Every yes closes a door. Every shortcut creates a dependency. Every compromise teaches the system something about you. Here is the rule most men discover too late. What you tolerate today becomes the cost you pay tomorrow. Loss of time is one cost, loss of optionality is another. When you commit too early, you reduce future leverage. When you explain too much, you weaken your position. When you chase value loudly, you lower it. Game theory reveals a difficult truth. High value positions require long periods of individual discipline. People see the outcome, they never see the restraint. They see the calm, they never see the decisions not taken. This is why value often looks unfair, because the price was paid long before the reward arrived. Men who understand cost do fewer things, but the things they do carry weight. They move less, but when they move, the system responds. This is not minimalism, it is precision. Every move matters because not every move is made. This is the final layer before the game becomes clear. And once you see the cost clearly, there's only one thing left: responsibility. Once you understand the game, life does not become easier, it becomes clearer. And clarity is heavier than confusion. Before awareness, you could blame timing, people, circumstance. After awareness, there is nowhere to hide. Because now you see the board. You see how every move teaches the system how to treat you. You see how silence reshapes outcomes, how patience bends situations, how restraint preserves leverage. And most importantly, you see how responsibility quietly replaces hope. This is the part no one warns you about. Game theory does not offer comfort, it offers control. And control comes with consequence. You will hesitate more, you will speak less, you will move with intention. Not because you are afraid, but because you are aware. The world will feel louder, more reactive, more predictable, and you will no longer need to rush because you understand something now that most never will. Life is not about winning loudly, it is about positioning yourself so you don't need to fight. Once you see the game, you don't get to complain anymore because every move is visible, every reaction is optional, every outcome has a traceable origin. From this point forward, the board is yours, and so is the responsibility. Take care, my friend.